Hey all, life's been pretty busy, but I've slowly been making some progress on the Nebula V2 project. I've been putting more of my focus on the CNC wire cutter slicer I've been working on, mainly to support making more intricate designs, especially for this plane. But now that I've got the software to a usable state, I decided to go ahead and redesign the fuselage. So the main changes to the fuselage design is I moved more towards a streamlined shape with softer curvatures, especially around the edges, and especially compared to the previous box fuselage that was made out of Adam's foam board. The foam I'm using for the fuselage is a less dense EPP, and because of the lower density and the lower rigidity, I went ahead and designed 3mm plywood bulkheads connected with carbon fiber spars. These help reinforce the areas of the fuselage, especially around the wing structure and where the tail joins and where the nose joins. Since the last update on this project, I went ahead and picked up a CNC router, and I've been using that to cut out the plywood pieces. The tail is still detachable from the main portion of the fuselage, and this is mainly for transportation because the full length of the fuselage wouldn't be able to fit in my car. The bulkheads are used for the joint this time, along with 4 carbon fiber spars that slot into the bulkheads. This is a more rigid design compared to the last version, which just used 2 square carbon fiber spars that slotted through the foam and just had 3D printed plates that kept the fuselage joined together. With this design, there'll be a lot more rigidity thanks to the 4 carbon fiber spars and the plywood bulkheads. When redesigning the fuselage, I also tried to increase the usable internal volume and increase the bottom width of the fuselage, especially near the midsection where the landing gear join. The reason for increasing the bottom width of the fuselage is to help increase the mounting area for the landing gear, which should help with some lateral ground stability, especially on rough landings. I also took the time to redesign the nose a bit, primarily from a manufacturing point of view. I removed the air inlets that were on the previous design and created a mold so that I can create the whole nose in 2 pieces, in 2 composite pieces. Each half is primarily fiberglass, and I also included 2 layers of carbon fiber on the bottom where the landing gear mounts. And then I also redesigned the landing gear block to be made out of 3mm plywood cut on the CNC router instead of having it be 3D printed. For the actual wire cutting, I used 36.5mm thick EPP insulation foam blocks. This resulted in 33 fuselage slices, and each of those was divided into 4. The 132 cross-section pieces fit onto 5 500mm by 300mm boards. Each piece has a thickness of 12mm, so the final wall thickness of the fuselage ends up at 7mm thicker than when using Adam's Ready board, since the Adam's Ready board is 5mm thick. It took about 4.5 hours to assemble the fuselage, not including the glue curing time or the cleanup of the fuselage or fiberglassing. So here's a time lapse of the assembly sped up by 2000%. So now the fuselage is pretty much all put together. I still have the final cleanup I need to do, all the sanding and then filling in with a foam spackle and then sanding down again, and then I'll need to fiberglass the fuselage. And then I'm probably going to install some plywood plates on the bottom to mount the landing gear too. The two pieces separate with the bulkhead and the 4 carbon fiber spars, and I'll probably add another plate to the top of the fuselage and one to the bottom that I can use to bolt the two together so they don't come apart in flight. Right now, without cleaning up the fuselage and without the spackle or the fiberglass, the total weight of the fuselage with the tail and the front portion is 265 grams, 264 grams. So overall, pretty nice weight. It's obviously heavier than the previous raw fuselage because that one was just Adam's ready board with no wood or carbon fiber inside of it. But it's actually not that much heavier. It's pretty representative. For the tail section, I plan on just reusing the pieces from the last plane because the damage from the crash wasn't that bad and nothing really changed on the design for the tail surfaces. So I'll still keep the pod with the camera in it, and I'll just mount the vertical stabilizer onto the flat segment I have on the rear of the fuselage for mounting. And then I'm probably going to make a wing box to mount to the top of the fuselage for the main wings. I don't think I want to use a 3D printed one again like last time, but I might end up doing that if I can't think of a good design. So now I pretty much just need to clean up the fuselage, and then I'll want to mount the nose to the front of the fuselage. I'm pretty much done with the nose. There's a lot of cleanup I need to do on it, and I'm probably going to make another bulkhead for here that mates to the bulkhead on the front of the fuselage. But this is all put together. The front has some holes where the fiberglass didn't completely mate together, but I'm just going to fill that with spackle, sand it down, and do another layer of fiberglass on top. And then the bulkhead should help with the rigidity around the front landing gear. So this just needs to be mated onto the front of the fuselage after that's all sanded down, and then I'll reinforce the mate with either some carbon fiber around the rim or some fiberglass around the rim. And then this part should be complete. And then I'll need to think of what I'm going to do for the access doors, because it was pretty simple on the last fuselage since it was just a square fuselage cross section. But I'll have to do a little bit more work on this one. Yeah, thanks for watching.